I started a drawing based off how I imagined Katniss and Peeta see the second Quarter Quell reaping and catching fire as they watched the recap of Haymitch's games on their way back to the capital. I found a copy of Catching Fire and wanted to reread this scene to see how it differs from what happened in Sunrise on the Reaping. So this is what I imagined when Maysilee gets reaped and Katniss says, "The camera finds her in the crowds, clinging to two other girls, all blonde, all definitely merchants' kids." This is a scene in the Catching Fire book, but it's left out in the Catching Fire movie. It happens when Katniss and Peeta are on their way back to the capital for the third Quarter Quell. They've been training for the upcoming games, and as part of this training, Effie has sent them tapes of old Hunger Games. They watch their fellow victors in an attempt to get a better understanding of those they might face in the Quell. As Katniss and Peeta sit together on the train, they decide it might be useful to watch another Quarter Quell, which happens to be the games Haymitch was the victor of. The tapes begin with the reapings, and in this scene, we see Maysilee Donner getting called up. Katniss notes here that her mother mentioned this was her friend, and they soon see a younger version of Katniss's mother next to Maysilee, along with another girl who is presumed to be Madge's mother. Madge, of course, is another character left out of the movies. It will be interesting to see how this plays out in the new Sunrise on the Reaping movie. I wanted to do this drawing before we got the rest of the characters. I still have quite a strong idea in my head of what Katniss's mother looked like, and I wanted to get that down on paper before I actually saw who they cast. So here I've got the three girls. Katniss's mother on the right, Maysilee in the middle, and Madge's mother, who is supposedly Maysilee's twin, on the left. I had them all drawn out, and then I realized the space looked kind of empty, so I decided to add some more background characters. Another interesting thing about this scene is that Maysilee, it turns out, is the original owner of Katniss's Mockingjay pin. It's a bit disappointing that the character of Madge was left out in the movies. It seems now, knowing the relationship her mother had with Maysilee, that Madge's relationship with Katniss is a bit of a reflection of that. And I think it shows the similarities between Katniss and her mother. I love that we've gotten more of the backstory between Katniss's parents in Sunrise on the Reaping. It seems as if there's a bit of a divide between the people from the Seam and the people in the merchant class in District 12. So I find it really interesting that Katniss's mother, who is from the merchant class, and Katniss's father, who turns out to be a coal miner, end up together. And I think Maysilee shows a little bit of the rebellious spirit that still exists in the merchant class. I found it a bit hard in this drawing to not give too much detail to the background characters. I wanted the three girls to still stand out, but also be in the crowd at the same time. So it was a little bit difficult in that regard. I would also love to do a drawing based off of Katniss's dad before I look at who has been cast as this character in Sunrise on the Reaping. I always find it hard after watching a movie to remember what I was thinking and what I was imagining when I first read the book. But I think the castings that they've made so far for Sunrise on the Reaping have been absolutely amazing. I'm so excited to see the movie. I've already done a drawing based on what I imagined Lenore Dove would look like, and so I'd love to do one as well based on what I imagined Haymitch was looking like. I do think, however, that my imagination was a little bit affected by that YouTube video that came out like ages ago that was based on Haymitch's Hunger Games, because I feel like that's all I pictured throughout Sunrise on the Reaping is like young Haymitch as that actor in that YouTube video. I've also done a drawing based on what I imagined Drusilla Sickle looked like, and now that I've seen who has been casted as her, I'm so excited. I actually feel like that was exactly how I pictured her in my head. I think that was the absolute perfect casting, and you couldn't have done any better. I think it would also be fun to do a young Effie drawing. And maybe a few of the other characters, like Megs and Wyrus. I think that would be cool to do one of her too. And maybe some of the other tributes. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I think I'll start with Katniss's dad. Now here, I'm just adding a few background buildings. This is how I pictured the reaping when I first imagined it in the Hunger Games, because it says it takes place in the town square, so I imagined like all the merchant buildings just behind where they're getting reaped. So I got the bakery included here. I've got like a few other random buildings. I've got the sweet shop, and yeah, I didn't do these too detailed, but I just wanted to make the picture a little bit more full. Another thing that I find interesting about the backstory of Madge's aunt and her mother is knowing that Maysilee now was a little bit rebellious in her games. It makes me curious to find out what situation led to Madge's mother being married to the mayor of District 12, and knowing that Katniss describes her as paralyzed with headaches just makes me curious how that all ended up happening. So now I'm just adding a few final details. A few extra shadows here and there. And that is pretty much it. Let me know what you think of it. Should I do more? Which characters should I do? Yeah, thanks for watching.